Okay, this is ArtisanTony, and I'm rolling out the course outline, the introduction. This will serve eventually as the introduction to the course for those taking it, but I also want to just introduce the course to those coming and trying to see what it's all about. And basically, this is going to be a course that you will be able to take and build your own home. And you may say, well, how is that possible? Well, I'm going to show you how. And part of it is just going to be understanding what role you would take, and that would be the first decision, one of the first decisions you would make in building your own home. This is me, Tony Griffey. I go by ArtisanTony on my YouTube channel. I've been in the construction industry for 40 years. I've worked in architecture, engineering, spec writing, inspection work. But in any event, I feel like after 40 years, I am qualified to share some knowledge. And of course, as you will learn, as part of being an artisan is keeping an open mind and learning on a daily basis, or at least the attempt at learning on a daily basis. So let's just go to the next slide here. I thought it would be kind of interesting to, if this gets kind of boring, to have a little video playing here on the side. The course will be divided up into 6 sections. And just to go over those briefly, one will be basically the mindset and philosophy of the project. Section 2 will be site. Section 3 will be design. Section 4 is pricing and budgeting. And 5 is construction. And 6 is closeout. So, and these will get perfected as we go along, but for this video, I'm just introducing the outline, basically the course itself. This is kind of funny. When I was thinking about philosophy, I was thinking about Alex and this picture that a friend of mine who's a photographer took probably 10 years ago. He caught Alex thinking, and this is my version of the thinker. And Alex has always inspired me to think about what I'm going to do. And that's what we're going to do. In section 1, you're going to develop a mindset and a philosophy on what you want your project to be, what you want your home to be. And you'll notice right off there's this margin over here. I'm eventually going to have this so this can be printed out by students. The areas that we will be talking about under this are, basically establishing your goal, doing research, and here's that all important, your role in the project, whether you are going to actually build your home physically yourself, or if you are going to just act as your own general contractor. And in some cases, you're going to be better off acting as your own contractor. And I'm going to have a tendency to get into the actual course in this introduction to the course, so I have to kind of catch myself. But we'll talk about those things. We'll talk about an initial rough budget. And a rough budget would be, I'm going to build my house for $125 a square foot, and that's my goal. You're looking at big picture here. We're going to talk about how to set up a documentation system, a filing system, how, taking videos and how to file those. And then again, we're going to go back to this idea of philosophy, just an overall philosophy. How much time are you going to allow for this project? Building permits last for 12 months. So certainly you'll want to try to get the project done within 12 months. And that goes back to this, your role in the project. And here I go again trying to get into detail when I'm just trying to outline. But those are the kind of things we'll talk about. We'll talk about quality of materials and working with others and your relationship with others, which is a huge deal in this. And then again, overcoming skill with philosophy. And that's a kind of I'll leave that as a teaser for the course. Section 2, huge, again, I'm going to say that about all of these, obviously, sections, but site, obviously, if you don't do a very good job picking your site, then you can get yourself in big trouble or have to spend a lot of money. And if that's what you decide to do, that's one thing. But if you get into your project and your budget hasn't allowed for additional cost, then that's another thing. So we'll talk about acquisition, how to purchase property, coordinating the site with design, and you'll see some of these themes repeated throughout the course. Certainly as they first come up, they'll be talked about, and then in greater detail later in the course. So you may see some duplication here. Like design, when you're choosing your site, you may only be choosing whether you want a basement or how the driveway may approach. When we get into actual design, we will get into details about those particular aspects. And then the same with layout, with setbacks, thinking about setbacks. And here's a very important one: utility, water. Are you going to have a well? Are you going to have city or county water? Electricity, is it underground, overhead? Sewer or septic tank is a huge one. This one has fooled me a couple of times, and you'll see I'm going to give it real life examples as we go through the course. Had one project that was put off for 2 years over a sewer issue. And then we're going to talk about another big one, a couple of things here: easements and drainage. Again, this section right here, make or break your project. Go to 3, design. Again, design will be closely related to site. You cannot design, and you will learn this through the course, that you should not completely design your home until after you've purchased your property. Taking a magazine, a floor plan out of a magazine or some elevations and just trying to plunk that on a particular property is certainly a big mistake, and you'll learn that. And then we'll talk about refining the budget based on design. Again, you see a lot of these themes repeated, but the further you get into the course, the more detail you will get into them. We'll talk about whether you're going to keep the home or sell it. Of course, that gets into whether you're acting as your own general contractor or not. And here's some more of these duplicate, seem like overlap earlier with site, and they are. And that is exactly the point. Talking about driveway approaches, whether you want your entries at the grade or not. We'll talk about Dr. Seuss steps, crawl space or basement, energy codes, whether you have an energy code or not in your county. Some of you probably don't even know that there are energy codes that exist and may or may not apply. We just had an upgrade to our energy code to where now they're going to require all of our exterior walls to be 2x6s to get the required insulation value. So depending on what type of what part of the country you're in, your energy code will be different, possibly. We'll talk about structural systems, whether you have poured concrete or CMU, whether you have conventional framing or engineered framing based on your budget. And then we'll go into HVAC concepts, which are very rarely, if ever, talked about in residential construction. Never in your life will you have ever heard, most likely, what we will talk about in this course regarding HVAC. And then we'll look at design tools. We'll actually look at how you can roughly lay out your own home and get it close enough, and do a site plan. When I say close enough, I mean to get a building permit with that. And then one thing there is that you will see we will be fast tracking some of this, where if you take the course, you'll have access to ask me questions, and as you go along, you will be able to take advantage of these design tools that I'm going to show you. So section 4, moving on, is budgeting, pricing and budgeting. This is where you will take what you finally decided as a goal, your $120, your $140 a square foot, whatever it is, and break it down. I'll teach you how to break it down initially, and then I'll teach you how to get prices. I'll show you which prices are very important and obviously what order they will be in. I will show you forms and requests for quotes and budget detail. All these are basically forms and spreadsheets that I can provide to you. So you're not only going to get information through the videos, you're going to get documents that you can use in your project. I have daily log forms, and that goes back to earlier when we were talking about how to set up your project documentation. So a lot of that will be, I have ways to help you out. Section 5 is you've gotten through your acquisition, you've got your design, you got your budget. Now you're going into the actual construction process. Again, you see a lot of things, a lot of subjects duplicated here from earlier, but now in each phase you're doing something different. Before, you were developing a philosophy about your foundation and estimating it, and now you're actually constructing it. And this is where we would be going into each area, and as hopefully I'll have the timing set up properly so that I can actually do these and video them in real life, in real time, as I go through this course. We're going to do the drawings in SketchUp, but let's say one day if I have the house that we're actually building, in that phase you'll see us actually doing the work on the ground. If not, you'll see it how it's done in the model down to the detail that you need to see. So in any event, you will have an example of each of these things that you can look at and see how they're done. Here's a really important one, a pre-drywall checklist, and the most important thing you can do before you hang drywall, just as an example, is a video. Go into each room, video each wall, showing where the electrical is, the plumbing, and all that. So again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but those are it's just another example of what we'll be talking about. And then finally, project closeout, which you think would be something that's easy to do. I'll have checklists for you. I'll talk about final inspections, how they're scheduled. For example, in our county, our city, we have an automated system, and we'll talk about sequencing, the fact that inspections take time. So you're going to want to at least allow a month for just project closeout. I know that sounds like a bunch, but you've got a lot going on. You're trying to close out your construction process with your city or county, and you're also trying to close out your construction loan. If you have, most likely you will have construction financing. So you will have things like notice of completion, insurance type changeovers. You start out with builder's risk, you end up with a homeowner's policy. There's this seems like a small section, but it's going to be very detailed. Going back to design here, you'll see that we'll offer another service to you, which is the actual drawing, design and drawing phase. And for that, you can go to, just to see some examples of some of our work. This is one of my websites, atdrafting.com. Here's some of the services that we've offered and we can offer you at the same time. And going back to your initial planning phase, you would decide at this point early, which hopefully you've allowed probably 6 to 8 months in advance of construction. You would decide at that point, how you're going to handle the design of the project. If you need help from us, we can do that, which would be something we would do prior to beginning of construction, obviously, or actually before it would be part of this phase here. If you need help, if you're thinking about building your own home, let me just say you can do it. My knee-jerk reaction is to recommend that people not try to physically build their own home, but just act as their own general contractor. Most states allow you to build a home every couple of years. In Tennessee, it's 2 years must have passed by before you can pull another building permit. So basically every couple of years you can build your own home and act as your own general contractor. And in doing so, you can save 15-20% on your home, and that's a pretty good chunk of change. That's a good amount of sweat equity. Now, going into a little bit of the course here, if you decide to physically build your own home, then you would have to certainly make sure you had a system set up, a crew, that kind of thing. But we're going to get into that as part of the course. As far as your role in the project, which is a huge deal, I can discuss that with each student as they try to decide how to handle that. I appreciate you watching, and I should have most of the course up pretty soon. I'll be working on each section as we go along, and especially if I have someone who's interested right away, we can fast track and work through some of these things together. So you can always reach me at Tony@atdrafting.com or Tony@ArtisanTony.com, and I can certainly help you out. Thanks for watching.